You okay? This is the same rock that people have been using here, right at this river, for thousands of years to make their tools and to survive with. It's been this rock. So I'm looking, this rock, to me, bridges the gap between past and present. I'll use this rock as my tools just as they did. Hey, I'm Jay Valenti with Wilderness Quest Outdoors. I'm here in the Green Mountains. We're going into the mighty Breadloaf Wilderness. We're going to be going into the wilderness to collect the same stone that ancient people used for their tools, for spearheads, arrowheads, axes, hammers. And we're going to find that in the creeks in the wilderness. We're going to find the same stone those ancient people used, and I have examples that I saw recently at a museum of those artifacts made from the stone we're looking for. And we're going to take those stones and recreate the artifacts from that museum footage from the last video. We're going to go into the mountains, we're going to make an Atlatl set, and we're going to test exactly how effective these replica artifacts can be. An Atlatl is actually a spear thrower, a stick you hold in your hand with the spear attached. Gives you a lot more force. And that's the same exact tool that ancient people used right where I'm standing right now, with those exact spear points from that exact rock from this land. They used it for hunting, big game, small game, fishing, and they even used it for knives to cut plants. So join us as we learn these ancient, traditional, primitive survival skills, wilderness living skills. These people lived with these tools on this land for thousands of years in harsh climates and harsh weather. So I'm going into the woods. You guys can come with if you want. I'm going now. See ya. Alright, we are here at the bushcraft camp, and I have my rock testing caribou antler. We're going to go down into the creek right over there and look for appropriate rocks to make the spear point from. Lots of workable rock right here, but we're looking for that specific rock that the ancient people used. It's called Cheshire quartzite. Cheshire quartzite is everywhere here, so we are going to find it. We just got to look for it, and I'll show you what to look for. This looks like a regular piece of quartz to me, but it's always worth checking it just to see what inside looks like. That is regular quartz. So you can use this for a spear point, but this is not what we are looking for. This is, you could say it's almost see-through. Regular quartz is almost see-through. Translucent is the word. So what you're looking for is a smooth surface on these stones for quartzite. This, I believe, is another piece of quartz because it's white. Usually white is quartz, but sometimes it's quartzite, and I'm going to show you how to spot that difference. Another piece of quartz. Really rough-grained quartz. If you get inside, you might find a solid piece to work with, but again, this isn't what we're looking for. I found a piece of Cheshire quartzite here. This is the multicolored gray stuff. It doesn't look like much until you crack it open. It just looks like a normal creek stone. When you're cracking it open with the antler, you're hitting at an angle that you're trying to drive a flake off so you can see what the stone looks like. Now I'm aiming for a low spot on the rock to take a flake off this edge with the antler. So I'm hitting into the rock and down to try to peel those flakes off. And you can see it's gray. This is the quartzite we're looking for. The quartzite we're looking for is gray inside. It flakes in a conchoidal fracture, a circular fracture like glass. And you can tell it's the right rock because it's razor sharp flakes of stone. Really, really sharp. You could cut things with this. You could skin animals with it. Anything you need to cut, you could use one of these flakes. So ancient people worked stone that is kind of like glass. When you drop a glass, it breaks it fractures and you get sharp edges. The same thing with this kind of rock. Ancient people used obsidian, chert, flint, chalcedony, and even some slate and shale for their spear points and knives. All of those can get a sharp edge. All of those can flake. Slate, not so great, but you could still use slate. In this area here, the ancient people used quartzite, this specific rock. And they used mostly the gray. So flint knapping is modifying stone, taking flakes off of stone to make a tool. Anything that you're working on stone can be considered flint knapping, unless you're grinding stone, and it's grinding technology. But this is called flint knapping. Doesn't need to be flint for it to be flint knapping. It could be, like I said, quartzite, quartz, chert, glass. Even, you could use glass. So if this is your first time looking for stone out in the wilderness, what you're not looking for is rough stone. Things that look rough. Like if you look at this, it looks like it has a rough edge. You see all that grain in there and everything? You see how it's all in layers like that? You're not looking for layers, you're looking for smooth. If it's like this, the edges are not sharp, and it's going to be really hard to shape it. It's not as predictable as a flint or a chert, and it doesn't get as sharp either. You can pretty much break it with your fingers into dust. So this is what you're not looking for. If I was just out here my first time, I would be looking for something white like this, and that would be like a quartz or a quartzite. You're not going to be sure until you crack it open, really. This is actually a quartzite. It's smoother, it holds together better. It's sharp as heck. That edge is super sharp. I'll show you on the stick that's right here even. Cuts right through like nothing. Do one more on a thicker piece. So you could use this by itself as a knife. And that's a good test if you're looking for rock. Find something that could cut. A really good tip, the best tip I could give you, is go to your local museum that has stone tools from ancient people and look at what rock they used. Look really carefully with your eyes at what color it is, what it looks like, the smoothness. And then when you're out in these creeks, look for similar. Here's the artifact. Here's the rock that looks like the same material. Let me test it with my antler. So when you're coming down to the creeks, if you don't know where to find an antler or you can't find an antler, you could usually find sheds laying around in the woods. But if you can't find sheds, you could order a dog chew. This is actually a dog chew. I ordered it online from eBay, this specific caribou. If you don't want to do that, you come down to the creek, you could find what's called a hammerstone, and I'll show you that now. So when I'm looking at hammerstones, I'm looking for something that's slightly grainy, that'll catch the edge of the rock and fit in my hand well. It's got to be round. You got to have a round tip to hit. When you find a good shape of hammerstone, you pick it up. You want it to be kind of heavy, kind of dense, to be able to drive these flakes off of this rock. Especially if you're using like quartzite or quartz, that's like the hardest rock you could get. So another thing when you're looking for these rocks, if you're having a really hard time getting into it and it's just not going, some of these rocks break exactly like glass. They're very fragile, they're very sharp. Other ones are really, really tough and you really have to put a lot of energy into it. If it's not working for you, drop that rock, pick up another one, and keep looking. Again, a little too rough grained for me. That'll fall apart as you thin it. It's still sharp as heck. You could use that as a knife, but it's too grainy. Breaks too easily. See that? And this is quartz. This is not quartzite. So I found the exact material right here. I can tell just from looking at it. It's the gray mixed with the white. And this is exactly the material that they were using for artifacts in those museum displays. I'll take a flake off of this just to show you real quick. Okay. Grainy white and gray. So we're going to try to make the spearhead out of this material. This is the same rock that people have been using here, right at this river, for thousands of years to make their tools and to survive with. It's been this rock. So I'm looking, this rock, to me, bridges the gap between past and present. I'll use this rock as my tools just as they did. So we're back at the bushcraft camp here. I got my Wazoo survival gear with me, and I'm gonna light a fire using this bushcraft gear. All right, so I'm making the fire so that when I'm working on the Atlatl dart, I'll be able to heat up the glue and shape the stick with the heat, as well as we're gonna cook up a little snack while we're here. So I got all the tools I'm going to be using right here. I got the 2 chunks of quartzite. I have the antler. I have a pressure flaker for antler, as well as a modern copper pressure flaker for comparison. And I have a copper billet as a modern equivalent to the antler. I also have my pine pitch glue. And I show in another episode how to make this. I'll put it up here, right there. So this is imitation sinew. This is real sinew. This is deer tendon. And you could use this for cordage. So this is everything I'm going to need to make today's stone tool and Atlatl kit. It has the modern equivalents and the traditional equivalents, antler and copper. So now that we got the fire going, I'm going to take a flake off of here to work on the wood, to shape the wood. I'm going to use the flake as a knife and as a saw. Like that. So I'm using these tiny flakes to cut up the wood, putting little cut marks in it. And I'm just going to do that all the way around, like that, in order to make the proper length darts. Cut a groove with the flake, and then you snap like that. So the Atlatl consists of a long dart. In this case, it's made from bamboo. I brought these bamboo rods with me because I don't want to cut down anything live in the forest here. If you were going to use what they used here, look for birch or oak. And I'm cutting these down to about 5 feet. So the Atlatl itself, the spear thrower, hooks into this hole. And then with that hook, you're going to take it and throw with the thrower to give it extra power. It goes a lot faster with the Atlatl spear thrower. And this will be the spear itself, and we're going to attach the stone point to right to here. So all that I'm going to be using right now is a flake off the rock that we took. It's already in the basic shape. We're going to use an antler just to trim the edges. It's called flaking. So we're going to flake the edges like this, taking off little tiny flakes. See all that little dust? Don't drop that on the ground. Pick it up. Always leave no trace. You don't want to leave any flakes for people to cut their feet. It's a lot harder to do with antler than it is with the copper. So I'm flipping it back and forth as I'm taking flakes to set up different platforms so it's easier to shape. When you're hitting a platform, you're taking a flake off of either the top or the bottom. So you're resting the flaker on the stone, you're pressing into the stone and down to pop those flakes off the bottom of whatever you're working on. Every time you flip it, in and down. In, down. In, down, over and over, until you get that arrowhead shape with the zigzag up and down. You'll see it goes up, down, and this gets razor sharp as you do that. Alright, so I'm finishing shaping it up. I'm going to start putting that V-notch in the base now. Just with the same method. In and down. So this is the flake that came right off of here, and I shaped that into that spear point. Just the basic shape off the top of my head. But if you want to see process on how to make these points, I have a playlist called Flint Knapping. You could click that right here, and I show how to do that start to finish. So I'm peeling this pine pitch off, and it's sticky. It's a sap. And ancient people used this stuff as a glue. So I'm taking it and I'm putting it right into the knock that I cut. Right in there. So pine pitch is made from pine sap, and it's a glue. The term pitch is a glue. It's mixed with other ingredients. I have a video on how to make this. I'll link it up in the corner. For now, we're putting it in that knock, and we're going to just heat it lightly over the fire. You don't want to add too much heat because that gets rid of the glue. You just want to heat it a little bit. Like that. Just a little bit. Then we're going to put that point in before it dries. See how it's stuck on there now? Like that. And now we're going to want to smooth out the edges and push the glue against the point to make a flush surface so that nothing gets caught when you're throwing this spear. We want to give it a heavy coating because we don't want it to come loose. Both sides. So I'm going to pull a bunch off the spool and I'm going to cut it with a flake when I think I have enough. Take one of these little flakes. Like that. So we're going to wrap the sinew around the point and the shaft of wood. We'll try to make it look as nice as we can. All the way up. You're going to want to put a little bit of that pitch on the dart itself so that it holds the sinew as well. When you get to about this point, you're going to want to go across the stone, around the stone, and back down. Then around, and the same thing, across the stone, back down, and around. That, go around your thumb, make a loop, put this tag end through, hold it in place, and pull it tight, like that. And to make sure everything is secure, put it on the flames one more time, not too hot, just right over the flame, just to heat it a little bit. Like that. And then you're just going to let it dry. Real sinew takes about a day to dry in the wind. If you put it closer to the fire pit, it's a couple hours. This stuff will dry right away and we'll be able to test it very soon. That is very sharp. Very, very sharp. We don't necessarily need feathers. The Atlatl is not really a super long distance weapon, although it can be if you do put the feathers on it. This we're going to be using for medium to short distance. Throwing with the Atlatl. So this is the Atlatl. The Atlatl is the spear thrower itself. And it's actually a system where you connect the dart to the tip. And you use this as an extension of your arm to get extra power when you throw. The Atlatl itself has been in use for at least 33,000 years. They found ones carved out of bone in France, in caves. This is just oak and birch, this one. This weapon was used in the Ice Age by hunters hunting woolly mammoth, very large creatures, and it got them through the Ice Age. They survived with this. And later on, it was used for all types of games, small, even rabbits, down to rabbits and squirrels. So this is actually high-level engineering, primitive technology. This was used to get people through the Ice Age. You attach the spear to the Atlatl, and this little point puts all that power into throwing the spear at the target. So as this fits right into here, there's often a rest carved for the dart to sit on to make it easier to hold and throw. Like that. You okay? That hurt? Sorry. So we got a few things to test this on. We got a cantaloupe. See how far that went in. Pretty far. That far. Good 4-5 inches. Tip still razor sharp. It's got squash on it now. Spaghetti squash is hard. So absolutely nothing goes to waste on Wilderness Quest Outdoors channel. We're gonna have this for dinner tonight. Spaghetti squash. Okay, let's try the cantaloupe. Let's see. How far in did that go? I wasn't able to tell. To point out. We'll get a look at it. Pull the pine pitch off. All in all, it still looks pretty good. The tip is a little dinged. But that did some good wounds on these targets. Like, it's pretty wide. So, we successfully crafted, this would be a woodland period arrowhead out of quartzite, the same stone that ancient people that lived right here used. I made the same kind of stone point. We successfully tested it on a spaghetti squash and cantaloupe, and we got the rock right down in this beautiful creek right outside my bushcraft camp. So using traditional tools and primitive technology, we successfully made this spear point, Atlatl dart spear point. People call it an arrowhead, but it's a spear point. And we used all of our traditional methods here. So we used a flake of stone of quartzite to carve this groove. Dart on the fire. We collected the stone from the creek, and we successfully, using traditional methods, antler, bone, and even some copper, to create and recreate this ancient primitive stone tool technology that ancient people used to survive. And we use the Ice Age style Atlatl to throw this spear into the ground, into a cantaloupe, and into a spaghetti squash with little to no damage to that spear point. The tip is a little dinged, that's it. And I have successfully hunted these spaghetti squash and cantaloupe so that the camera girl can eat tonight. I am a successful hunter. I brought home dinner. Now we're gonna eat it. We got some meat too, but I didn't hunt that at all. I got it from the farm. And for a final test, we're gonna test the point cutting meat just by hand. We'll see how it goes. Cuts through plastic pretty good. All right, see if it's still sharp. We're gonna use the edge to cut a groove. Still pretty sharp. That is a trout eating a piece of meat I throw in the water. That's as far as it'll zoom.
There he is. There he is.
Got the smoke from smoking our meat on the fire pit. We're gonna eat that. Like, comment, and subscribe, guys. So sub if you want to see more primitive survival skills, bushcraft, all this kind of stuff. Flint knapping, whatever you like.